Greetings, everyone. It is the third week of June, and I'm on a lookout road trip. On this trip, I'll be visiting both standing lookouts and former lookout sites. I'm here in the Umpqua National Forest, and my first stop is the Elahi Rock Lookout, which is less than a mile hike one way to reach. So let's get going. And we've reached the summit. This is the first of two lookouts that are up here. This is a D6 cupola cabin that was built in 1925. And it used to have the cupola with windows up there, but that got lowered at some point, probably when the tower was built. At one point, the Forest Service was going to convert this cupola cabin into a rental, but for some reason it never happened. Inside is full of all sorts of junk and supplies. The building is in pretty rough shape. And this is the tower, which was built in 1956, and it was staffed until a few years ago, around 2015 or so. And since then, the Forest Service walked away and abandoned it. When I was up here last year, the trap door was still in place, and someone had cut a hole in it, and now the whole trap door has been removed and set up here on the catwalk. We've got great views up here. It's Diamond Peak, Mount Thielsen, Mount Bailey. You can even see Mount Jefferson way off in the distance. It's difficult to get into the cabin, but I was able to hold my phone up to the windows to look inside. This looks like a helicopter landing pad. Well, that was a nice little hike, and the wildflowers were awesome. So now I'm off to the next destination, which is Lookout Mountain. Okay, we're at the next destination, which is Lookout Mountain. This is an official trail, but there are no signs or anything. You have to know it's here, and you have to know how to get here. Here we go. Now we've got a sign. I'm almost to the top and I'm already getting views. That's the Three Sisters. And there is Diamond Peak. Wow, look at all this balsam root. This is a pleasant surprise. Wow, what a cool spot. This is much better than I was expecting. There was a cupola cabin that was built up here in 1926, and I'm guessing this spot here on the summit proper was where that once stood. And then a 30-foot tower was built in 1949. This looks like the spot where that once stood. Over here we've got a view of the Three Sisters, and here is Diamond Peak. Over here we have Mount Thielsen and Mount Bailey. And that is Quartz Mountain and Mount McLaughlin in the distance. And that's Mount Jefferson way off in the distance. That is Red Butte, where I'm headed next. I've been to many old fire lookout sites, and many of them are disappointing with trees that have grown up blocking the views. But this is pretty awesome. This is a pretty great payoff for a half-mile hike. Get all these views, and then this time of year you get all these awesome wildflowers. Well, this has been a pleasure, but it's time to hike back to the car. Well, I found a nice campsite for the evening. I had a third thing planned for this afternoon, but decided to skip it and save it for another trip. So I drove south where I'll need to be for tomorrow's adventures and found a really nice, pleasant campsite beneath the trees along Boulder Creek. I made a delicious roasted garlic pasta for dinner, which tasted great after the long, hot day. Good morning. It is day 2 of my trip, and I have had breakfast, packed up camp, and ready to set off on the day's adventures. The first stop today is the world's tallest sugar pine. It's 265 feet tall and 7.5 feet in diameter. I seem to remember reading something about this tree being threatened by a wildfire a few years back. I'll put that information on the screen. Our first stop today is that, Acker Rock. Wow, the views up here are incredible. This is looking west. Dumont Butte, Black Butte, and Cavett Mountain to the north. Distant Diamond Peak to the northeast. High Rock Mountain and Hirschberger Mountain. This lookout was built in 1964. Well, it's been a nice visit up here, but it's time to head down. Talk about a loo with a view. This is the toilet for the lookout. Well, I had other plans for today, but I've scrapped them. I was on my way to a trailhead when I encountered a tree across the road that I wasn't sure I could quite squeak under. And without a spotter, I didn't want to try it. And on my way back out to try to approach from a different direction, I passed this campsite and decided, what the heck, I'm going to call it a day. It is only 2 o'clock, but it is 82 degrees here at 1,900 feet. It is toasty, and sitting by the river with a book sounds way more appealing than hiking in this heat. Good morning. I am up on Black Rock in the Umpqua National Forest. It involved some cross-country navigation through the burned forest down there until I got up onto the rocky slopes where I was able to pick up the old trail tread. I'm parked right there, and then I walked down that road and then followed an old abandoned roadbed, trying to follow what was on the map. And then you can't see my route, but it was along the base of a mountain over here and then up these rocky slopes. This forest burned in 2009, and that might be around the time when the Forest Service abandoned this trail. It's too bad because it's a really cool spot up here with amazing views. It only took me 30 minutes, even though I was following trail only a third of that time. This is the site of a former fire lookout, and the foundation is still here. The first one was built back in 1911, and then it had a cupola added to it, and then it was replaced with an L4 cabin, and that was removed in 1965. There's Diamond Peak, Mount Bailey, Mount Scott, and other peaks of Crater Lake National Park, Mount McLaughlin, and Quartz Mountain, which I have seen from numerous spots on this trip. My final stop of the day is the old Walker Mountain Lookout. The lookout was built in 1932, but it's been abandoned for quite some time. The bottom stairs have been removed and changed to the tower so people can't steal them. The old living quarters is a neat old stone cabin that was built in 1917. Looks like an old water tank. There's also an old garage up here. Passport in Time volunteers were up here in the late 90s restoring these buildings, but it looks like their work has been forgotten and these buildings haven't been touched since. Amazing views up here. Mount Shasta and Mount Scott, Mount Thielsen, and Diamond Peak. The road was re-graveled not that long ago, and this is probably why. This looks pretty new.